The message arrived during a funeral. Admiral Rebecca Stone sat in the back row of the memorial service, her dress uniform perfectly pressed despite the humidity of Earth's summer air. They were saying goodbye to Commander Phillips, a good officer who had served 40 years without seeing real combat, a peaceful end to a peaceful career. Rebecca barely heard the eulogies. Her neural implant had just pinged with an emergency code she had not seen in decades. She excused herself quietly and stepped into the chapel hallway. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pulled up the decoded transmission. The frequency was ancient, something from the early exploration days when humanity first stumbled beyond their own solar system. The language was formal, almost apologetic. To our friends of Terra, this is Council Speaker Nira of the Halcyon Collective. 47 years ago, your people came to our system broken and dying. We mended your ships, we healed your wounded, we asked nothing because friendship requires no payment. Today we find ourselves in desperate need. The Ravager clans have come to our worlds, our cities burn, our people flee to the outer colonies. We have no warriors, we have no weapons that can stop them. We do not demand your aid. We do not claim you owe us a debt. We simply call to those who once called us friends. If you can help, we would be grateful. If you cannot, we understand. May your journey be peaceful. Rebecca stood frozen in the hallway. Her mind raced back through decades of reports and historical files. The Halcyon rescue. She knew that story. Every officer in the fleet knew that story. In 2187, the exploration vessel Wanderer had suffered a catastrophic engine failure in uncharted space. 5 crew members had survived the initial blast, but their life support was failing and their distress beacon was too weak to reach human colonies. They drifted for 11 days, slowly suffocating, slowly freezing, watching their oxygen counters tick toward zero. Then the Halcyon found them. A peaceful species of scientists and philosophers, the Halcyon had no reason to help the strange aliens in the broken ship, but they did anyway. They brought the humans aboard. They shared their medicine, their food, their advanced technology. For 6 months, Halcyon engineers worked around the clock to rebuild the Wanderer from spare parts and improvised solutions. They refused every offer of payment. They simply wanted to help. David Cross had been the youngest crew member on that ship, just 23 years old, barely out of the academy. He had written a report after returning to Earth that became required reading for every diplomatic officer. In it, he described how the Halcyon treated them not as curiosities or bargaining chips, but as people worth saving simply because they needed help. Rebecca pulled up her communication console and began typing rapidly. Within minutes, she had David Cross on a video call. He was 70 now, his hair completely white, but his eyes still sharp. "You saw the message," he said. "It was not a question." "I did, David. I need to know. Is this legitimate?" "I already verified the encryption codes. It's them. They're really under attack." Rebecca took a deep breath. The Ravager clans are not a small threat. Intelligence reports say they field thousands of ships. They specialize in overwhelming systems through pure numbers and brutality. If we go to help the Halcyon, we might be walking into a slaughter. David leaned forward toward his camera. "Admiral, 47 years ago I was dying in the black. My crewmates were dying. We had given up hope. And then people we had never met who owed us nothing, who gained nothing from helping us, saved our lives anyway. Not because they had to, because they chose to, because it was the right thing to do. I understand the sentiment, David, but I answer to Earth Command. I need military justification for." "Then ask for volunteers," David interrupted. "Send out a general call. Explain the situation. Let every captain decide for themselves. But Rebecca, if you don't send that call, I'll find a way to go myself, even if I have to fly my old ship alone." Rebecca closed her eyes. She already knew what her decision would be. She had known the moment she read that message. But she needed to hear someone else say it first, needed to know she was not being foolish. "I'll send the call within the hour," she said quietly. "But David, I can't promise we'll have enough ships to make a difference." "You will," he replied with absolute certainty, "because we're human, and humans remember." The call went out on every military and civilian frequency humanity controlled. Rebecca kept it simple. She explained who the Halcyon were. She described what they had done for 5 lost humans decades ago. She detailed the current threat. Then she made her request. "I am asking for volunteers. Any ship, any captain who wishes to assist in the defense of Halcyon Prime. This is not a military order. This is not a mandatory deployment. This is a chance to repay an old debt to people who asked for nothing and gave everything. If you choose to answer, set course for Rally Point Delta 7. We launch in 36 hours." Rebecca sat back in her chair and waited. She expected maybe a dozen responses, perhaps 20 if she was lucky, military vessels that happened to be nearby, maybe a few private ships with captains who liked a good fight. Her communication console exploded with incoming transmissions. The first response came from Captain Rachel Hunt of the destroyer Steadfast. "Coordinates received. We're already en route." Then Captain James Riley of the freight hauler Long Haul. "My grandfather was on the Wanderer. I'm in." Commander Patricia Wells of the cruiser Defiant. "Uploading tactical data now. See you at Delta 7. The responses kept coming. Destroyers, frigates, medical ships, cargo haulers, private security vessels, mining barges, survey ships, even civilian yachts equipped with improvised weapons. Every single message said the same thing in different words. "We're coming." Within 3 hours, over 200 ships had confirmed their participation. More were still responding. Rebecca stared at her screen in disbelief. She had asked for volunteers to potentially die defending aliens most humans had never heard of. And every single captain had said yes. Because the Halcyon had once saved 5 humans who needed help. And humanity never forgets. Rally Point Delta 7 floated in the darkness between stars, a designated empty zone that served as a gathering point for human fleets. Rachel Hunt had arrived early aboard the Steadfast, expecting to wait hours for other ships to trickle in. Instead, her sensors showed contacts appearing every few minutes through hyperspace windows. She watched through her viewport as a massive freight hauler materialized just 300 meters away. The ship had no business being in a combat zone. Its hull was designed for cargo, not warfare. Yet someone had welded armor plates to its sides and mounted missile pods along its dorsal ridge. The modifications looked rushed but functional. "Steadfast, this is the Long Haul requesting permission to join formation." The voice on the radio sounded young but determined. "Long Haul, this is Captain Hunt. Permission granted. What's your combat capability?" "Limited, Captain, but we've got thick hulls and strong engines. We can serve as mobile cover for smaller vessels. Plus, we're carrying medical supplies and refugee housing modules. Figured the Halcyon might need both." Rachel felt something tighten in her chest. These were cargo pilots, not soldiers. They were volunteering to put their ships between civilians and killers. "Good thinking, Long Haul. Welcome to the fleet." More ships arrived. The cruiser Defiant came through with perfect military precision, immediately taking up a defensive position. 3 corvettes from a private security company appeared together, their captains requesting tactical assignments. A medical ship called Mercy broadcast that it had 30 trauma surgeons aboard and could handle up to 500 casualties simultaneously. Then something unexpected happened. A Halcyon vessel dropped out of hyperspace. The ship was small, elegant, built for research rather than war. Its hull shimmered with a pearlescent coating that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. Rachel had never seen Halcyon technology in person. It was beautiful in a way human ships were not. "Human vessels, this is Research Director Finn aboard the survey ship Gentle Tide. We received word of your gathering. I am authorized to provide tactical information about Halcyon Prime's current situation." Rachel opened a channel. Director Finn, this is Captain Hunt. We welcome any intelligence you can provide, but I have to ask, why send a research ship to a military staging area? There was a pause before Finn responded. His voice carried a musical quality, each word carefully chosen. Captain Hunt, my people saved 5 humans 47 years ago. Today, hundreds of your ships have come to save millions of mine. I needed to see this with my own eyes. I needed to understand what kind of species responds to an old friendship with such overwhelming force. We're just repaying a debt, Rachel said simply. No, Finn replied softly. A debt is transactional. 5 lives for 5 lives would be repayment. You are bringing an armada to defend people you have never met. This is something else. Something my people have studied in theory but never witnessed in practice. You call it honor. We are beginning to understand what that word truly means. Before Rachel could respond, another massive hyperspace window opened. The dreadnought Remembrance emerged, its hull spanning nearly 2 kilometers. Weapon batteries lined its surface like scales on a predator. This was Earth's flagship, and it had come. Admiral Rebecca Stone's voice cut across all frequencies. All vessels, this is Admiral Stone. I am assuming command of this operation. Prepare for tactical briefing in 1 hour. Ships continued to arrive. By the time the hour elapsed, over 300 vessels had gathered. Military warships formed the core, but civilian ships outnumbered them 2 to 1. Mining barges with improvised railguns. Scientific vessels carrying sensor equipment. Even a luxury yacht whose owner had apparently armed it with whatever weapons he could purchase on short notice. The briefing began with Director Finn providing current intelligence. He displayed holographic images of Halcyon Prime, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. Then he showed what the Ravagers had done to it. Orbital platforms burned. Cities smoldered. Refugee ships fled toward the outer planets while Ravager vessels hunted them like predators chasing prey. The Halcyon Defense Fleet, never designed for real combat, had been reduced to 18 ships desperately trying to protect evacuation routes. The Ravagers operate through overwhelming numerical superiority, Finn explained. They have approximately 800 vessels in the system. Most are small raiders, but they coordinate their attacks effectively. Our people are dying because we built a civilization based on peace. We never imagined needing weapons like yours. How long can you hold? Admiral Stone asked. 3 days. Perhaps 4 if we abandon the outer colonies and concentrate all defenses around the homeworld. But Captain Hunt, Admiral Stone, you must understand something. Even with your fleet, you will be outnumbered nearly 3 to 1. The Ravagers are experienced killers. Many of your volunteers are not soldiers. I do not want human deaths on my conscience when my people chose peace and left ourselves vulnerable. Rachel watched Admiral Stone's face on her screen. The Admiral was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Director Finn, let me explain something about humans. We are very good at warfare. Not because we enjoy it, but because our history taught us how to survive against terrible odds. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We know every dirty trick, every tactical advantage, every way to make a smaller force defeat a larger one. The Ravagers may have numbers, but they have never fought humans before. They are about to learn why that matters. She pulled up a tactical display showing the route to Halcyon Prime. We jump in 18 hours. All captains will receive individual assignments. Military vessels will engage Ravager command ships. Civilian vessels will run interference and protect Halcyon evacuation routes. Medical ships will establish triage stations. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we do not stop until every single Ravager is either dead or running. One more thing, Stone added. The Ravagers think they're attacking a defenseless target. They have no idea we're coming. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late, because humans do not forget kindness, and we do not tolerate bullies. Director Finn's voice was barely a whisper. Your species is remarkable." "No," Rachel said quietly. "We're just returning a favor." The fleet began final preparations. In 18 hours they would jump into hell itself, but not one captain requested to withdraw, not one ship turned back. Because 47 years ago, the Halcyon proved that compassion existed in the universe. Today, humanity would prove that compassion was worth fighting for. Hyperspace shredded apart as 300 human ships materialized in Halcyon Prime system. Rachel Hunt felt the familiar lurch in her stomach as the Steadfast transitioned back to normal space. Her sensors immediately painted the battlefield, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The Ravagers had turned the system into a slaughterhouse. Debris fields marked where Halcyon ships had died. Atmospheric fires raged on the second planet where orbital bombardment had cracked open civilian shelters. Hundreds of small Ravager raiders swarmed around the homeworld like insects, their weapons tearing into the last 18 Halcyon defenders. "All ships engage at will," Admiral Stone ordered. "Show them what happens when they threaten our friends." The human fleet scattered into predetermined attack patterns. Military vessels accelerated toward Ravager command ships, their weapons already charging. The civilian haulers moved to intercept raiders harassing Halcyon evacuation transports. Rachel targeted the nearest cluster of enemies and opened fire. The Steadfast railguns spoke with thunder. Magnetic accelerators launched tungsten rounds at a fraction of light speed. 3 Ravager raiders simply ceased to exist, vaporized by impacts that released more energy than nuclear weapons. Rachel did not slow down. She dove deeper into the enemy formation, her point defense systems destroying incoming missiles before they could connect. Beside her, the long haul proved that freight haulers could be deadly. The massive ship positioned itself between a Halcyon evacuation vessel and a pack of Ravager interceptors. Enemy fire splashed across its armored hull, scarring the metal but failing to penetrate. Meanwhile, the haulers' improvised missile pods launched salvo after salvo, filling space with explosions. "Long haul to Halcyon Transport 7. You are clear to proceed," Captain Riley transmitted calmly, as if he was directing traffic rather than taking fire from a dozen hostiles. But the Ravagers had numbers. For every raider the humans destroyed, 2 more appeared. Rachel watched her tactical display with growing concern. They were winning individual engagements, but the enemy kept coming. Then the Defiant entered the fight properly. Commander Wells had positioned her cruiser above the planetary orbital plane, giving her a clear field of fire down into the main battle. Her ship carried weapons designed to crack open fortified installations. Against small raiders, those weapons were devastating. A particle beam lance cut through space, carving a line of destruction through the Ravager formation. 15 ships died in a single shot, their hulls unable to withstand the focused energy. Wells methodically swept her fire across enemy positions, each beam creating expanding clouds of debris. The Ravagers finally understood they were not fighting civilians anymore. Their tactics shifted from casual slaughter to organized retreat. Command vessels began broadcasting new orders, trying to consolidate their scattered forces. Admiral Stone had anticipated this. The Remembrance had been holding position near the system's edge, appearing to avoid direct combat. Now it moved, and Rachel understood the trap. The Dreadnought accelerated to attack speed, positioning itself between the Ravagers and their retreat vector. Any enemy ship trying to flee would have to go through it first. Stone was not just winning a battle, she was sending a message. "Ravager fleet, this is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Terran Navy. You came here believing you could prey on the defenseless. You were wrong. The Halcyon are under human protection now. You have one chance to withdraw. Take it, or we will destroy every single ship you have in this system." The response came from a massive Ravager dreadnought, easily twice the size of any human vessel. Its commander's voice was a guttural snarl. "Humans, We have heard rumors of your species, warriors from a harsh world, but you are far from home and we are many. You cannot save them all. Watch us, Stone replied simply. The Ravager dreadnought opened fire with everything it had. Missiles, plasma cannons, kinetic weapons, all launched simultaneously at the Remembrance. The attack was overwhelming, designed to obliterate any target in seconds. But the Remembrance did not stand alone. Every human ship in the system shifted position simultaneously, moving with coordination that suggested a hive mind. Point defense networks linked together, creating overlapping fields of fire. Missiles died by the hundreds before reaching their targets. Energy weapons were deflected by angled armor plating. The few hits that connected scorched hull plating but failed to penetrate. Then the humans returned fire. Not just the Remembrance, but every military vessel in the fleet. They focused their combined firepower on the Ravager dreadnought, turning it into the center of a firestorm. The enemy ship's shields collapsed within seconds. Its armor boiled away under sustained bombardment. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as weapons magazines detonated. The Ravager commander tried to broadcast a retreat order. Rachel did not give him the chance. The Steadfast put 3 railgun rounds through his bridge. The dreadnought listed to one side, dead in space, fires consuming it from within. The remaining Ravagers broke. 800 ships had entered this system expecting easy prey. Now barely 400 remained, and those were fleeing in every direction. Human vessels pursued, cutting down stragglers, ensuring the survivors would carry a message back to their clans. Earth's children do not forget kindness, and they do not forgive cruelty. As the last Ravager ships jumped to hyperspace, Rachel finally allowed herself to breathe. Her ship had taken damage, several hull breaches and a damaged engine, but nothing critical. Around her, the human fleet was battered but intact. They had lost 6 ships, destroyed by overwhelming fire before support could arrive. 63 crew members dead. But they had saved millions. The Halcyon evacuation transports were safe now, moving toward designated shelter zones. Orbital defense platforms that had been offline were being restored. Medical ships were already descending toward the surface to treat wounded civilians. Director Finn's voice came across the communication network, and Rachel could hear tears in his words. "Human fleet, this is Finn. I do not have words for what you have done. My people watched from the surface as you fought for us, as you bled for us. We saved 5 of you once. Today you saved all of us. How can such a debt ever be repaid?" Admiral Stone's response was gentle. "Director, there is no debt. You showed us compassion when we needed it. We showed you protection when you needed it. That is not commerce. That is friendship." Rachel looked at her damaged ship, at her exhausted crew, at the debris field that marked where humans had died defending aliens they had never met. And she smiled, because this was what it meant to be human. 3 days after the battle, David Cross walked through the streets of Luminara, the capital city of Halcyon Prime. Reconstruction crews worked everywhere, repairing damage from the Ravager bombardment. Human engineers worked alongside Halcyon technicians, sharing knowledge and techniques. The scene reminded David of something from decades ago, when Halcyon engineers had worked tirelessly to repair the Wanderer. A young Halcyon child approached him, her parents watching nervously from nearby. The child held something in her small hands, a carefully folded piece of paper covered in colorful drawings. She looked up at David with large eyes that shimmered like opals. "Are you the human from the old ship?" she asked in carefully practiced English. David knelt down to her level, his old knees protesting slightly. "I am. My name is David. What's yours?" "Lyra, my teacher said you were dying in space and my people saved you. Then you came back and saved all of us. Is that true?" David felt his throat tighten. "It's true. Your people were very kind to me and my friends. When we heard you needed help, we wanted to return that kindness." Lyra thrust the paper toward him. I drew this for you. It's our two species holding hands, because we're friends now." David took the drawing with trembling hands. The child's artwork showed stick figures, some with human proportions and others with the taller, more slender build of Halcyon. They were indeed holding hands, surrounded by stars and planets. At the bottom, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Thank you for not forgetting us." "This is beautiful, Lyra. I will treasure it always." The child smiled and ran back to her parents. David stood slowly, carefully folding the drawing and placing it in his jacket pocket. He continued his walk, heading toward the Planetary Council building where Admiral Stone was meeting with Halcyon leadership. The council chamber was a circular room with walls made of crystalline material that caught and refracted light in stunning patterns. Council Speaker Neera stood at the center with Admiral Stone, both reviewing holographic displays of system defenses. Director Finn was there too, along with several human military officers. "David," Neera said warmly when she noticed him enter, "please join us. We were just discussing future security arrangements." David moved to stand beside them. "Have you reached any decisions?" Stone gestured to the tactical display. "The Halcyon have asked for our assistance in establishing a proper defense network, not just military hardware but training for their people. They want to be able to protect themselves if the Ravagers return." "We spent 10,000 years believing that peace was sufficient," Neera explained. "That if we offered no threat, we would receive none in return. The Ravagers taught us how naive that was. We must change, but we do not want to become killers ourselves. We want to learn your way, how to be strong enough to protect but gentle enough to remain who we are." David thought about that carefully. It's not an easy balance. Humans struggled with it for centuries. We fought each other constantly until we nearly destroyed our own planet. It was only when we finally reached the stars that we learned to channel our aggressive instincts toward protection rather than conquest. "That is what we want to learn," Finn said. "Your species has mastered the art of defensive warfare. You fight with incredible ferocity, but only to protect. We watched you in battle. You could have pursued the fleeing Ravagers, destroyed them completely. Instead, you let them escape once they stopped being a threat. That is the difference between a warrior and a murderer." Captain Riley entered the chamber, his freight hauler uniform still stained with grease. "Admiral, sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation developing. Long-range sensors are detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. The energy patterns don't match Ravager technology." The room fell silent. Stone pulled up the sensor data, her expression darkening. "How many contacts?" "At least 50 capital ships, ma'am. Maybe more. The signatures are consistent with Dominion naval vessels." Neera's face went pale. The Dominion. They claim this entire sector as their territory, though they never enforced it while we paid them tribute. If they're coming now, it's because they heard about the Ravager attack. "What do they want?" Stone asked. "Everything we have," Neera replied bitterly. "The Dominion operates through intimidation and extraction. They appear after disasters, offer protection and demand resources in return. But their protection is conditional. They would have let the Ravagers destroy us, then claimed our worlds as abandoned territory." David felt anger rising in his chest. "And now they're coming because they see humans defending you. They think we'll leave and they can swoop in to collect the spoils." "That's my assessment as well," Stone agreed. She turned to Neera. "Council Speaker, I need to know something. Do you want us to stay? Because if the Dominion arrives and finds human ships still here, this could escalate into a diplomatic incident, possibly even a war." Neera looked at Finn, at the other Halcyon officials, then back at Stone. "Admiral, your people came across the galaxy because we once showed compassion to 5 humans. You risked everything to defend strangers. How can we ask you to risk even more?" "You're not asking," Stone said firmly. "I'm offering. The question is whether you want us here." Yes, Nira said without hesitation. Yes, we want you to stay, not just for protection, but because in 3 days you have shown us what true friendship means. You are the first species we have met who values honor over profit. We will be proud to stand beside you, whatever comes. Stone nodded once. Then we stay. Captain Riley, recall all human vessels. I want a defensive perimeter established within 3 hours. Military ships on the outer ring, civilian vessels protecting the inner system. We're about to find out if the Dominion is interested in diplomacy or dominance. David watched the preparations begin. Ships moved into position. Weapons were charged. Shields were raised. But this time, humans were not defending alone. Halcyon vessels, few though they were, took positions alongside their new allies. Two species, bound by an old act of kindness, preparing to face a new threat together. In his pocket, David could feel the weight of Lyra's drawing, a simple picture of friendship. He hoped that friendship would be enough. The Dominion fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Rachel watched from the steadfast as 50 enormous warships materialized at the edge of Halcyon Prime System. Each vessel was a work of art, hull plating etched with decorative patterns, weapon ports arranged in aesthetically pleasing symmetry. The Dominion clearly valued appearance as much as function. A communication came through on all frequencies. The voice was smooth, aristocratic, utterly confident. This is High Commander Atreus of the Dominion Third Fleet. We have come in response to reports of instability in this sector. All foreign vessels will depart immediately. This system falls under Dominion protection protocols. Admiral Stone replied with equal formality. High Commander, this is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Terran Defense Force. The Halcyon are not under Dominion protection. They are under human protection. We decline your request to depart. There was a long pause. When Atreus spoke again, his voice carried an edge of irritation. Admiral Stone, perhaps you are unaware of Dominion territorial claims. This sector has been under our administration for 600 years. Your presence here is a violation of established boundaries. Funny, Stone replied. Where was this administration when the Ravagers attacked? We detected no Dominion ships coming to assist. No defense fleets, no aid convoys, nothing. Yet the moment the crisis is over, you arrive to claim protection rights. That seems less like administration and more like opportunism. Rachel could almost hear the anger in Atreus's next words. You are testing our patience, human. The Dominion does not appreciate upstart species interfering in our affairs. Withdraw peacefully, or we will remove you by force. David Cross was monitoring the communications from aboard his old ship, positioned near the Remembrance. He activated his own transmitter, broadcasting on the same frequency. High Commander Atreus, my name is David Cross. 47 years ago, I was dying in space. The Halcyon saved my life and asked for nothing in return. Today, they called for help, and every human captain responded. Not because of territorial claims, not because of profit, because friendship means something to us. How touching, Atreus said with obvious sarcasm. A species motivated by sentiment rather than logic. The Halcyon made a poor investment saving you, human. Clearly, it did not purchase them competent protection. That was a mistake. Rachel saw it happen across every human ship simultaneously. Weapon systems went from standby to active. Engines moved from idle to combat power. Shield generators ramped up to maximum. Atreus had just insulted the Halcyon, and humans did not tolerate disrespect toward their friends. Stone's voice was ice-cold. High Commander, you have 3 options. 1, you can withdraw and we forget this conversation. 2, you can negotiate a diplomatic solution that respects Halcyon sovereignty. 3, you can attack us and discover why humans have a reputation for being difficult to kill. Choose carefully. The Dominion fleet began moving into attack formation. Rachel felt her pulse quicken. 50 capital ships against 300 mixed human vessels. The numbers favored humanity, but Dominion technology was reportedly advanced. This could go very badly. Then something unexpected happened. A new set of hyperspace signatures appeared. Rachel's sensors struggled to identify them at first. Then the ships materialized and she understood. They were not human. They were not Halcyon. They were representatives from 17 different species, scattered across dozens of star systems. Small fleets, each one containing only 5 or 6 vessels. But they positioned themselves alongside the human formation, their weapons active, their shields raised. Dominion Fleet, this is Captain Vera of the Kryn Confederacy, a new voice transmitted. 2 years ago, human traders helped our colony survive a famine. They asked for nothing. We heard they were facing the Dominion over a matter of honor. We came to stand with them. Another voice, deeper and resonant. This is Defense Coordinator Prill of the Moss Collective. Human medical ships treated a plague on our homeworld. We owe them lives. If the Dominion wants to fight humans, they fight us too. More voices joined in. Species Rachel had never heard of, scattered across the galaxy, all sharing similar stories. Humans had helped them in small ways, asking for no payment, no treaties, no territorial concessions. Just help freely given because it was the right thing to do. And now they were returning that help. High Commander Atreus watched his tactical display with growing alarm. What had been a simple intimidation mission was rapidly becoming a diplomatic nightmare. If he attacked the humans now, he would be attacking 18 different species simultaneously. The political fallout would be catastrophic. "This is absurd," Atreus transmitted. "You would risk war over a single system, over a species of pacifist philosophers." Director Finn's voice cut through, broadcasting from Halcyon Prime. "High Commander, we are pacifist philosophers, but we are also the people who taught humanity that compassion exists in the universe. They learned that lesson well. Perhaps you should learn it too." Rachel saw the Dominion fleet hesitate. Atreus was not stupid. He could win this battle through sheer firepower, but the cost would be enormous. And what would he gain? One devastated system and dozens of new enemies across the galaxy. "Admiral Stone," Atreus said finally, his voice carefully neutral. "Perhaps we were hasty. The Dominion is always interested in diplomatic solutions. We propose a conference to discuss regional security arrangements. Neutral territory. 1 week." Stone did not hesitate. "Agreed. But understand this, High Commander. The Halcyon are not bargaining chips. They are our friends. Any agreement must respect their sovereignty completely. Non-negotiable." "Of course," Atreus replied smoothly. "The Dominion respects all sovereign species." The Dominion fleet began withdrawing, maintaining formation, but clearly standing down from combat readiness. Rachel watched them go, hardly believing what had just happened. They had faced down one of the galaxy's major powers, not through superior weapons or overwhelming force, but through something simpler. Through friendship earned across dozens of worlds, through small acts of kindness remembered and repaid. Captain Riley transmitted on the Human Tactical Network. "Did we just change galactic politics by being nice to people?" Admiral Stone laughed, actual genuine laughter. "Apparently we did, Captain. Apparently we did." David Cross pulled out Lyra's drawing, looking at the stick figures holding hands. The child had drawn truth without knowing it. Friendship was the most powerful weapon humanity possessed. 6 months passed. Rachel Hunt stood in the observation deck of Unity Station, a joint construction orbiting Halcyon Prime. Human engineers and Halcyon technicians had built it together, combining technologies in ways neither species had imagined possible. The station served as both defensive platform and diplomatic center, a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Below her, Halcyon Prime had recovered remarkably well. Cities were rebuilt. Orbital infrastructure hummed with activity. But more importantly, Halcyon Defense Forces now trained alongside human instructors, learning not to be killers but to be protectors. David Cross joined her at the viewport, moving slower than he once did but still sharp in mind. Thinking about the battle. Always, Rachel admitted. We lost 6 ships that day, 63 people. Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it. David gestured to the planet below. Ask them. Rachel knew he was right. The Halcyon had not simply survived. They had transformed. They still valued peace, still cherished knowledge and philosophy, but they now understood that peace required strength. Not strength to conquer, but strength to defend what mattered. Admiral Stone sent me new orders, Rachel said. The Council has approved formation of the Cross Initiative. David raised an eyebrow. They named it after me. You're the one who started all this. One human saved by compassion. Who taught an entire species that kindness deserves protection. The initiative will be a rapid response force. Any species facing extinction or catastrophe can call for help. We'll answer. That's a big commitment. Earth's military isn't large enough to police the galaxy. We're not policing, we're responding, and we won't be alone. Rachel pulled up a holographic display showing fleet compositions. 17 species have committed ships to the initiative. The Halcyon are contributing their new defense fleet. We'll be a coalition, not an empire. Director Finn entered the observation deck, his translator device chirping softly. Captain Hunt, David, the conference with the Dominion is about to begin. Council Speaker Nira requested your presence. They followed Finn to the diplomatic chamber, a large circular room designed to accommodate multiple species comfortably. The Dominion delegation was already present, High Commander Atreus looking considerably less confident than he had 6 months ago. Representatives from dozens of species filled the other seats, all watching carefully. Council Speaker Nira opened the proceedings. We gather today to establish new guidelines for galactic cooperation. The old system, where powerful empires claimed protection over vulnerable species, has proven inadequate. The Ravager attack demonstrated this clearly. When we needed help, the Dominion did not come. Humans did, not because they claimed us, but because they considered us friends. Atreus shifted uncomfortably. The Dominion acknowledges errors in our response time. We are prepared to offer the Halcyon preferential trading status and reduced tribute requirements. We do not want your tribute system, Nira said firmly. We want mutual respect between equals. The humans taught us that protection should not require subjugation. A representative from the Kryn Confederacy stood. Captain Vera speaking. My people propose a new framework. Species join the defensive coalition voluntarily. No tribute, no territorial claims. We share technology, coordinate defense, and respond to threats collectively. The humans have proven this model works. The debate continued for hours. Some species embraced the idea immediately. Others, particularly those benefiting from the old system, resisted. The Dominion tried to maintain their traditional authority, but the political landscape had shifted. Finally, Atreus spoke with grudging respect. The Dominion recognizes that the galaxy is changing. We are not accustomed to species who refuse our protection, but we are pragmatic. If this coalition succeeds, we are willing to participate as partners rather than administrators, on equal terms. It was not complete victory, but it was progress. Rachel watched as species who had never spoken to each other before began forming agreements. Trade networks, defense pacts, cultural exchanges, all inspired by one simple idea: friendship was more valuable than dominance. As the conference concluded, Rachel returned to the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly in every direction, and she wondered how many other species might need help someday. How many calls the initiative would answer. Her communication device pinged. An emergency signal coming from a remote system she barely recognized. A species called the Trell were reporting pirate attacks. Their defense forces were minimal. They were requesting assistance. Rachel pulled up the trail's message. At the bottom, they had included a simple note. "We have heard of humans. We have heard you help those in need. We have nothing to offer in return. But if you are what the stories say, please come." She smiled and opened a channel to the Steadfast's crew. "All hands prepare for departure. We have a mission." Within an hour, 6 human ships and 3 Halcyon vessels were ready to respond. Not an overwhelming force, but enough to make a difference. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Rachel thought about David Cross and 5 dying humans who had been saved by strangers. That single act of compassion had created ripples that spread across the galaxy. It had changed how species viewed each other. It had proven that strength and kindness were not opposites, but complements. Her tactical officer called out coordinates. "Course laid in, Captain. Ready to jump on your command." Rachel looked one last time at Halcyon Prime, at the station named Unity, at the fleet of mixed species working together. She thought about a child's drawing of stick figures holding hands. "Execute jump," she ordered. The Steadfast leaped into hyperspace, carrying humans and Halcyon together toward unknown dangers. Behind them, other ships prepared for other missions. The Cross Initiative was operational, a living testament to what the galaxy could become. And somewhere in his quarters, David Cross carefully placed Lyra's drawing in a frame. Beneath it, he added a small plaque with words he had written himself. They saved 5 humans who needed help. Those 5 humans inspired millions to help others. This is how compassion spreads across the stars. This is how the galaxy changes, one act of kindness at a time. Outside the viewport, stars beckoned. Somewhere out there, someone needed help. And humans would answer. Because that was what they did.